Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to another amazing training. This week, it's going to be a little bit more on the tech side than on the kind of the wholesale investing strategy side. I was thinking maybe we kind of come up with a new theme, maybe call it like Smarter Contact Tech Thursday or something like that. But I've been blessed to be able to talk with a lot of you guys, a lot of users, kind of understanding and getting feedback of what you're wanting to learn, kind of what obstacles you're kind of facing in your business right now. And the most I got was about data, coming down to your list, getting those lists of finding who's really motivated to be selling, of course, right now, and also preparing for the future of where our market is going to be shifting. I know a lot of people are getting into virtual wholesaling because maybe their market's a little slow, so they're wanting to look outside of their market as well too. But I'd like to introduce you to Burton. I mean, I'm sure you've seen him all over YouTube. This guy is so popular and famous. Everybody's always wanting to hang out with them and talk with them about data. But Burton, thank you so much for joining with us, being able to share some knowledge around data, teach us something new. So thanks again. And for all of those who are watching, stay till the end. We'll actually be doing like a 10 to 15 minute Q&A like we always do. And then for those of you who are staying at the end, we actually have a bonus for all of you for if you're going to be joining and using Propstream. And of course, if you're a Smarter Contact user. So Burton, thanks again. And man, the floor is all yours.
Hey, thank you so much, Daniel, for having me. And everybody, thank you so much for allowing me to have your time today. Let's just dive into it. And so I'm going to show you guys what Propstream can do and what it's about. So Daniel, I think I may need your permission to share.
You should be good as a panelist. Oh, wait. All right. Go for it now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and get started with Propstream. Now, let's just kind of break it down really quick on what it really can do. You're probably wondering if this is your first time seeing it, what does it really do? So I created this outline for you. It does two important things. The first and most important thing it's going to do is it's going to do lead generation. So in Propstream, as you were hearing me and Dan talk a little bit earlier, what we do differently is just complete data manipulation. Now, when you're searching, you can do it one of two ways. We can do it the traditional way, which is going into a market and then choosing a specific list that we have collected for you, right? So we have 15 categories from vacant to liens to cash buyers to pre-foreclosures and so forth. So the traditional way is to get one of these categories and then refine it, right? Add the property type, add the ownership info, add the equity amount, and so forth. So that's phase one, is you're searching and you're filtering. And then once you get your results, you're gonna save your list and then export it. Now, once you export it, you can do what you wanna do with that data. You usually get the owner's name, mailing address, property characteristics, and the property address. Now, if you need contact information, we do have that as an option. That's what I call phase two. You can take your built list and get it skip traced through our system. So we can actually get you a landline, a cell phone, and or an email. And then you can export that data and in this case, upload it to Smarter Contact, right? Now they can start doing the text messaging and all their servicing for you, right? Now we do have some marketing. We don't do text messaging, so they're gonna have to take care of that for you. And I do recommend that you look into doing that with them. But we have some marketing involved in our system. That's what I call phase three. What phase three is it takes your lists that you perhaps might have skip traced in phase two, and it puts it in a marketing campaign, right? So you might have a marketing campaign for your tax list, your marketing campaign for your buyer's list. Now, each marketing campaign gets a free website. It's a one-page website that calls to an action. Hey, I have a contract for you. Hey, I want to buy your house in cash, or whatever the message is for that campaign. Because again, no two campaigns are the same, right? Now, once you create that landing page, you then can send postcards, ringless voicemails, or emails. Again, we don't do text messaging. So these are the only options available. Now, skip tracing and marketing is an additional cost. So that's why they're in different phases. If you just need the data, you're just phase one. If you need the data and phone number only, phase two. If you want to take care of it all, the postcards, voicemails, email, we got you covered as well, okay? Now, whether you do that in our platform or the next platform, right? Or you do it manually, go to the county, you knock on doors after you get the list, you get someone to want to sell their property. Well, you're going to need to know the information on that property, and that's stage 2. Or you can switch this around. Maybe you have a lead now, and so you go straight into stage 2, right? But stage 2 is to actually search that address by clicking on its parcel or searching the address itself, then getting the details that we've collected. So we're going to take that parcel address and tie it through all of our 15 categories. We're going to let you know if there's been a cash transaction on it, if it's on the market, if it has a pre-foreclosure, a bankruptcy, a divorce, and so forth. That's what I call finding opportunities. Because when you're talking to the homeowner, you're going to need to sound like a credible investor, right? So only way to do that is to talk upon the data that's there. Now, I need you to understand how complicated this is, because if we go back 10, maybe 20 years, this information was scattered through multiple sources, right? You could have called the owner and they could say, oh, I had a lien. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that. That's because it comes from a different office. So to be able to tie all that information together, that's what we're doing for you, okay? Now, once you search the address and look at those opportunities to talk upon, find the pain, the reason why they want to sell, then you're going to be able to run comps. You can use public records, which is records from the county. You can use MLS records, records that come from the agent's database, the multi-listing service. These are properties that just sell through an agent. Or you can use them both. And we just released a new comp system called Flip Comps, which actually, again, is our way of playing with data. What we're doing is we're looking for a behavior in Flip Comps, is if anybody bought a property and then sold it within 24 months. And then we're going to show you what they bought it for and what they sold it for 24 months later. So you can see potential trends in certain markets and get an idea of what buyers are willing to pay for and then what they end up flipping the properties for, right? Because that's going to be your after pair value. So that's something that we just created and launched this Monday. And I'll show you what I mean in just a few. And then finally, you can print reports. So you can take these reports, print them while you're talking to the homeowner, or you're going to email it to the homeowner and buyer. And then we have additional features like the mobile app, team member accounts, and stuff like that. So this is just what our system can do. Let's dive into it and implement it, okay? So let's assume we got a lead. Let's start there, right? So somewhere in the United States, someone calls you. Hey, I want to sell my property. Okay, it's in somewhere in Georgia, right? Atlanta. So again, 2 ways to search the property. You can zoom in on the market, and then we're going to show you the parcels of the property. And then from there, you can click on the property and it's going to give you the details of that property, right? So I'm lagging a little bit here. I'm sorry. All right, let's do it the other way. Let me just search the address. So if you search the address, this is what's going to happen. It's going to populate that. Or I really want to show you guys the parcel search because that's like one of my favorite searches. But you'll be able to zoom in and click on it. There it is. Okay, so I'm lagging just a little bit, but pardon me. But again, 2 ways of searching a specific address. You can type in the parcel and it's going to give you the parcel details. And then you can go into the details of that actual property and it's going to show you everything that we've collected on that property. So I just randomly found this parcel in Downey, California. And then I went into the details and now I know the owner's name, their mailing address. So they don't even live in this Downey. They live in Bellflower, just a few cities away. It looks like they're renting it out. Non-owner occupied. It's occupied by someone. Mr. Nguyen here has owned it for over 9 years. All right, got the property characteristics, building information, land information, legal description, tax information, last sale information, who the mortgage was when they sold or bought the property. So all this information is, again, scattered and from multiple different providers. We're just piecing it together. Again, what we also do is we show you other situations, like he bought this property in cash back in 2011. So he's been cash flowing it since then, right? Pure profit every month. Well, I'm sure he has to replenish that, but as you get it, he has no equity on or no mortgage on the property. If he ever falls into distress, that's a key component because there's no mortgage I need to take care of, right? So this is the concept with our system, is that this is analyzing a specific property because we know this is going to end up happening. Somewhere in the United States, someone's going to call you and say, hey, I got your postcard, I got your text message. I want to sell my house. You can pull it up by clicking on the parcel, or you can type the address of a property that's in Miami. And if you search the actual address, we're going to do the search a little bit different. We're going to take the zip code and we're going to populate the local listings for you. So we're going to show you how many MLS properties are in that zip code and pre-foreclosures and auctions, how many bank-owned properties, how many cash buyers are in that market, properties with liens, properties that are not answering their mail, properties that have a lot of equity. We're also going to show you the subject property, and these blue dots here, or tabs, are the neighbors right over here below the subject property's brief details, right? So you're going to get the characteristics and whatnot, but down here, you're going to see the neighbors. This is what we call local knowledge. Like, you don't need to know this, but we have that much data. Like, we have 153 million property records, so we can paint pictures for you, right? We can show you how many MLSs, both currently, current and past, that were listed in this market, pre-foreclosures, foreclosures. And then below the map, we're going to give you statistics, right? Because again, you might be in a different market. You might just be diving into this market for the first time ever. We're going to take our data and show you trends, like if there's been price changes or rent changes, how the price per square footage has trended. Since we have MLS data, we're going to show you, hey, you know what? If your investors list the property for that's 4 bedrooms, it usually takes about 6 months to sell. That's good, because when you start selling contracts to investors, you might want to let them know, hey, you know, properties sell usually around 6 months, right? How do you know that? Because of the data. Market trends, pre-foreclosure trends, rent. So maybe you might have an investor who wants to rent the property. You can tell them what the rental prices are on average in this market. Listing trends. So this dissects our MLS data, shows how many properties sold in the last 30 days. Remember, MLS is different than the county. A property can sell with an agent first, and then they'll go on their MLS and say it's sold. And then that paperwork is sent to the county, which takes 2, 3, maybe sometimes a month, even longer, because of what COVID-19 has been doing, right? And here's a prime example. Listing trends is MLS data. In the last 30 days, the MLS has sold 161 properties. Sell trends is county records. In the same last 30 days, they were only able to record 10 of those. So you can see how having access to MLS data is important, because it's letting me know, hey, this market is still booming, right? Compared to the last 90 days, it's been growing. Last 90 days, there was a dip, but in the last 30 days, different story. Things are coming back to normal. Things are starting to sell again. Okay, so this isn't even going into the details of the property. This is just, I search the address, what happens, boom, local listings, subject property on the map, details and neighboring records on the right side, statistics for the zip code. Just to add that cherry on top, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can drop the guy anywhere on the map. If it's blue, you're gonna get street view if you like. And then top right is our heat map. This lets you see estimated values. Like, again, I'm not in Miami, I'm in Southern California. First thing I'm gonna do is the map part, but here, let me see the estimated values, right? My buyer said nothing over $1 million. Well, we have a lot of $1 million properties in this area, so I need to stay away from here, right? I can look at MLS stats, listing prices in this neighborhood. Show me properties that are listed and what their listing prices are in the neighborhood. Price growth. If I buy this property and it takes a year to rehab the property, well, how has the last year grown? And we can see some properties have actually grown by 100%. And yellow means it's trending about 10, 20% right now. So that's not bad. If we get an investment property here, if it continues in this trend, we're still going to be making a lot of profit, especially if it takes a year to do the rehab, right? And then rent values. So you can see rent prices. I want to rent the property out. So the concept with searching an address is, again, local knowledge to get you informed, to make you sound more credible, to be more credible at the end of the day. But inevitably, whether you're clicking on a parcel or searching through by an address, you can also search by APN as well. If you want, you can search by an APN number. You just have to type in the exact APN number, because if you don't, then it's not going to give you the results. So it has to be the exact APN number, the county, and the state, and then you'll be able to populate the property, right? Very common for those that are searching like vacant land or vacant land investors. It's very rare that someone searches for that, because it's like searching for someone's social number, right? Like social security number. Like, no one really has that much info. It's like searching for a car based on the VIN number, not the model number, right? Or the model of the car. It is a search that you can perform, but it's very, very rare. So that's the specific address search. Again, when you do that, inevitably, you're going to go into the details. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this address and we're going to go through every one of our categories. also the ones that are in our filter, right? Like the free and clear, the bankruptcy, the divorces, and all that. So we're going to take this address and we're going to scrub it through this list. Why? Because when you go into the details, we are going to tie in everything for you, right? So this property that Mr. Hoven owns, right? Property details is from the county. We know that, but because we collect pre-foreclosure data, we see that he's in a pre-foreclosure as well, right? So we just tied in 2 county records together. So pre-foreclosure, it's active, recorded last year. They haven't put an auction date on it. Probably know why. Where are we getting our data? Directly from the county. You can actually purchase documents that we have. It's an additional cost, but if you want, you can actually purchase the document, just save the property, purchase it, and you're going to be able to get the document. Okay. Next, we scrub it against our lien data, our bankruptcy data. So you can see here, there's a lien on the property. Oh, there's the document. There's our pre-foreclosure document, by the way. This is where we're getting our information from. So you can purchase documents if you want. You can forward it to your investors, forward it to your buyers. Once you buy the document, it's yours to keep, right? So we have the lien details, bankruptcy details, and then again, we collect MLS data, right? So we can see listing prices, whether it's active, failed, someone bought it, list the agent's information, the listing history. Having access to MLS gives us access to the photos. So we're able to see the photos that they uploaded back in 2018 when they listed this property. So they listed it in 2018 and it failed. It didn't sell in the market. So there's a lot of information without even calling the owner. And right now I can see what happened, right? They filed for bankruptcy July 2017. Homeowner knew he was in trouble, so he ended up calling an agent, right? On August 10th, 2017, he listed the property. He knew he was running out of money. He knew he had to take care of this situation because he had a mortgage to deal with. So called Rachel. Hey, Rachel, let me list my house with you. Rachel said, okay. While Rachel's trying to sell the house, the lien holders aren't getting paid. They're like, hey, you know what? We're not getting our money. So 3 months after listing the property, lien holders are now filing their liens against the property, right? We can see all of that. And then a year later, after the property fails, right? So the property failed in 2018. So Rachel put it on the market for an entire year and it didn't sell. Talk about a waste of time. But then after doing that, just to make matters worse, Compass Bank came after him too and said, hey, you know what? We're going to file a pre-foreclosure on your property as well too, right? So without even calling this owner, I know how motivated this person is. He's very, very motivated. So motivated that he tried to call an agent and sell it and couldn't. So here's where you come in as option number B, right? Some of these owners don't even know that you can sell properties in cash or that there's a creative seller finance strategy out there, right? That you can help them with. Now, this is what we do. Now, all of this information I just showed you is scattered here at the top, right? It shows you the property characteristics, a summary of whether it's on market and pre-foreclosure, does it have an HOA, the years of ownership, if they're answering their mail, if they occupy it or not. Now, here's what I don't want you to do. Don't use our estimated value as your after repair value. When you're calling these homeowners and they say, okay, well, what do you think my house could sell for? Don't tell them this. That's not how it works. There's a difference between estimated value and running comps. Estimated value is run through an algorithm, right? It's a computer system taking data and then looking at the characteristics that are similar and then spitting out an average price point for you. There's a problem in that. When you run comps, you're looking at this. Did the property get rehabbed? What material did they use? Because that's going to dictate what price that property can be listed for or sold for. Now, when an algorithm is running these calculations on properties that sold, they don't look at photos, right? Because a computer is not, well, we're not there yet, but a computer is not looking at photos. It's just looking at just the raw data. So that sell value that it's using in its algorithm could be from a property that's sold in like horrible condition, or it could be a property like this. It's sold in immaculate condition. But that's why I don't want you to go by that, because it's not a true value of the property. It's a mix of as is properties in the neighborhood that sold and properties that sold in perfect condition, right? And by the way, if you do use that value, come to that conclusion and you don't have anything to show for, you don't have comps, you don't have pictures, you don't have listings in the neighborhood to show for, you just lost the deal. Like you literally burn the bridge. So just don't ever, whether it's our platform or the next platform, ever use that in your negotiation process. Use it for your personal gain. Use it to understand, oh, okay, properties in this market are about $100 or $1 million plus or minus. That's really what it's designed for. Same with the comparables. This is just saying, hey, 32 properties sold in the neighborhood, right? We didn't filter it for you, but 32 properties sold in this neighborhood here. And there's an issue here because most of the properties are by this little river right over here, and some of them are not. So this comps value is just saying, hey, when we put a circle around this area and we take all the properties that sold, 32 of them, and we just average their price, it's 790. And that's not the price for this property because this property sits on a river. And again, if we look at estimated values, you can see the difference. These are all red, these are all yellow, right? So again, two important things. When you go into a detail, don't ever use this in your negotiation or this. Just use it as an understanding that that's where it's at. And then as for the comps, it just encourages you to filter it even more. And I'll show you that in a second. Mortgage summary, debt summary. So how many mortgages they have, how many liens they have, the opportunity, which is the equity that we've calculated on their house, the monthly rent, and then public record sale. Okay, so just this is what we're doing. We're trying to give you as much information so you can talk upon that. Hey, Hovind, I see you still have a mortgage on that. Roughly around 700,000. Is that correct? And then if he's probably gonna say, yeah, we owe about 680. 680. Oh, my system or my records indicate 720. Oh, well, we've been making extra payments on our property. Oh, that's why. That's why I don't ever want you to take these numbers by gospel, because we don't know things like that. We don't know if Mr. Hovind's been making extra payments, or in this case, not making extra payments. So when you call him, that number would probably be a little bit higher because he probably didn't make any payments for the last 6 months or the last 12 months. And we don't know that because we're assuming that he has, and our calculations still keep going. Again, there's a difference between the human factor and the algorithm, the robot factor, okay? So that's how the system is laying out the data for this property or for the neighboring property that you might be clicking on, right? They all look the same, but they're not the same because the tabs will either appear or disappear depending on the situation. Like this neighbor I just clicked on, it happens to have just sold on the market recently, right? I didn't know that, but because we have it scrubbed against all of our data, you can see things like that, which is going to be very important when it comes to list building. Now, finally, I believe where it comes to an end is after you know this information and you talk upon it, right, Mr. Hovind, I'd like to help you from, and get you out of that pre-foreclosure and pay off your liens. And, I like to make sure that we look past that bankruptcy you filed a few years ago, right? And I know Rachel couldn't help you, but I think I could help you, right? You see how I'm able to use this data to talk confidently about what we can do, right? Finally, it's going to end with, well, okay, Burton, I think you can help me. What are you offering? What's your price? Like, what are you trying to give me? And now that I know his mortgage, now that I know how much he owes, I need to know how much I can offer him. And that's where comparables and nearby listings comes into play. So here's how it works. When I click on that, the whole bottom half changes. I'm now able to see comps. These are those 32 properties. Again, these are all the properties that sold. They're unfiltered. So these are like 3 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 1 bedroom, no bedrooms. Like we didn't filter them. We just said, hey, 32 have sold in the last year within a half a mile. We're going to show you our flip comps. This is our revolutionary flip comps. This is going to show you what buyers are buying it for, right? The purchase amount, when they bought it, and then what they're flipping it for. So here's an example. Person bought it on December 16, 2019 for $235,000. Then about a month later, on January 10, 2020, they flipped it for $450,000. Gross profit, 215, right? And we can see that across the board. Now, sometimes they could take a loss, right? Someone buys a property at $1 million and market crashes. So within a year and a half later, they sell it for 900. That can be shown here. But you want to, again, isolate the ones where there's been a positive gain. Then we're going to show you the nearby listings. Neighbors, just in case you're like in a gated community or in a cul-de-sac, right? Because you might be dealing with a property that's like built in 1920 and it has certain architectural value to it. And so you can't use the same 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom property that just got built last year. You're probably going to want to look at the neighbors in the area because they're probably built in the same time. So if a neighbor sold recently, let's say in the last 6 months, and it has the same features, then that's probably the value you want to go by. Okay. Then we're going to show you cash buyers in the neighborhood. This is great, right? You got the contract signed. Now we just need a buyer in the neighborhood. This is where you can find them. When do you want a buyer this year, last year, 2 years ago? Characteristics that they're buying. Is it an owner occupied buyer? Probably not. You want the non-owner occupied ones, the ones that are buying and not living in that property. But the key important part here is to not only be able to find a buyer in this local vicinity of the property you're searching, but to see what they're buying it for, right? The last thing you want to do is lock up a contract that's much higher than what the investor buyers are buying things for, okay? Then we show you pre-foreclosures and other nearby listings in case you're just interested in trying to find another lead, right? So maybe you did get the purchase agreement, you did get the buyer that you sold it to says, hey, Burton, great deal. Hey, find me something else in the neighborhood. Well, we can just find something else in the neighborhood now, right? So that's how that works. Now let's focus on the comps and the flip comps, right? Primarily the comparables. So when you click on comparables, we're going to give you two types of records to use. Public records, which is county records, official county records. Anything real estate wise in terms of a transaction, the county is going to record it. And that's why we have these weird colors that you see, because those colors are certain sell situations, right? And you can actually filter for that here. So it could have been a cash transaction, right? The county records that. So these cash transactions may not have been on the MLS. They were done privately, but the county is still going to record that, right? Now, why is it important to know that? Because you're going to notice that cash transactions buy properties at a lower value, right? So if you're trying to calculate the repair value of a property, the after repair value of a property, you're not going to want to use cash transactions, because what do we know about cash buyers? They buy properties in distress or as is condition. So you don't want to show your investors, hey, I have a property on contract and here are the comps, and you show them these values, because that's just not how it's going to work, right? So definitely don't want to do that. Again, you're going to be able to see properties that were financed by a bank and all sorts of records of real estate transactions. Now, when you're using public records, the best practice is to use finance records. Why? Because when a bank puts a 30-year note on a property, right? When you're looking to get a mortgage, 30-year mortgage, the bank is going to send an inspector to that house before you get it, right? Because the bank needs to make sure that before they give you this money, and you have to pay it back in the next 30 years, before they give you this money, right? If you forget to pay, or if you end up not paying and they have to take that property from you, if they have to repossess that property, the bank is going to want to repossess a really good property, right? So my main point is banks don't give 30-year notes on properties with mold, properties that have had fire damage, properties that don't have a roof. Finance properties are properties that look like this, where they're immaculate. Why? Because if you don't pay the bill, I'm going to take this house from you, and then I'm just going to clean it up and put it back on the market and give it to somebody else for the next 30 years to pay. And we're going to keep doing that. That's why finance records are typically the best practice if you're going to use public records, okay? And the good thing with public records is they're official. The county is the last stop when it comes to recording, right? Nobody else records it after. So these records are actually official. There's no arguing there, right? Now, once you choose that or MLS, and I'll explain what MLS is, you're going to have to apply your filter, choose the sell situation. So it's all about apples to apples. If you have a 4-bedroom property, then you need to look for 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and it's going to isolate those results for you, okay? Now, other things to note are multi-parcel sells. This is when an investor buys like 10 properties at once. Good to know, probably want to add them on your buyers list, but bad for comping. You probably want to remove them. And here's why. When you're comping a property, that's what you're doing. You're trying to comp what a property could sell for, not what 10 can sell for at once, right? So remove those multi-parcel sells, especially if you're trying to get a value. Otherwise, you're going to see some properties that sold for like 10 million, 20 million, and you're going to be scratching your head and you're like, why did it sell for 20 million? It's a 3-bedroom property. And then when you click the details, you're like, oh, there's a company, an LLC or a corporation that just bought 100 properties in the neighborhood, and that's one of them, right? So remove the, exclude the multi-parcel, means get rid of them. Don't put them in your results unless you're using them for a reason, maybe to build a buyer's list. Then you can increase and decrease your distance And then apples to apples, if you're comping a single family property like this one right here that we're dealing with, then you got to get rid of these duplexes. How do you get rid of them? You can either uncheck them or just go over here and say, I want residential and single family, right? Now, if you did want duplex, then you would just go down here and choose duplex, and then just those would show up, right? Sense, single family. Now, finally, you can also zoom in on the map and use the draw search feature. This is really cool, especially if you're like near a highway. You can use the draw search feature to isolate your own area for comping. And then after you isolate your own area, you hit search, and then it just gives you the results in that area there. So it's a really great tool there. So that's public records. These are our filters. Those filters apply to the MLS, but what's the difference here? So there are three, for me, major things about the MLS that I think we need to understand. The first one is that the MLS is not the county record, right? MLS actually comes from the agent's database. And so, oh man, my screen is lagging a little bit here. Pardon me. Keep seeing that draw search feature there. Okay, there it's gone. Okay, so MLS comes from the agent's database. And the three major benefits there is most properties that are listed with an agent, photos, right? As you can see, most of them have photos. So that's, again, the separation between running comps using an algorithm versus running comps actually as a person. That I can look at these photos that just got uploaded in May, a few months ago, and see, okay, well, damn, that property was rehabbed. And that's what it looked like. Like, that's amazing. We can see the furniture, we can see the interior work, the type of kitchen, how the rooms are, right? But now you see what it takes for a property to sell for $885 or $855. That was the one I just clicked on, right? So now you get to see that, right? So that's the difference between us and them. Now, there are properties where we don't see a picture, so those are the ones we don't want to use, right? So that's one benefit with MLS, is seeing photos. Second benefit is what we call frequency. You're going to be able to see things here that the county hasn't even recorded yet. Because what did I tell you earlier? Remember that graph I was showing you here? That the MLS will still show us sold records that the county hasn't acquired yet. And this is a property, I deliberately pulled this up earlier because it showed me just that, right? I think what I did was I did a 1 mile radius. I chose the sold status, and all I did was organize it by date. And so this was the one that stood out. 750 Northeast 77th Terrace, sold 3 weeks ago, about a month ago now, right? So that's on MLS records. Remember that, 750 Northeast. Right after it is 7630. When I go to public records, right, same 1 mile radius, and I organize it by sell date, they don't have that 750 yet. But the 7630 is here, so not bad, right? But MLS shows me one extra property that the county has not yet recorded. And I actually have the photos too of that property, right? It's a rehab property, right? That's what we call frequency. You can see things before the county, and that's a luxurious thing to have. Another thing to note is that when you're in like Texas or New Mexico or one of these non-disclosure states, you're only going to want to use MLS because the public records won't give you the right values. So just make sure you stay with that. So that's the luxury there of having MLS over public records. You can use either or. Another benefit with MLS is to see, you normally don't want to do this, you usually want to stick with sold, but you can see pending listings, things that are about to sell, and you can even see active listings, like how's the market reacting today, okay? And then you can finally use both. So now that you guys understand the comping process, all you have to do is choose the record type you want, apply your filter, go through the photos, that's the most important part. And then as you go through the photos, you're gonna make your selection. I want that one and that one and that one and that one, right? And then after you make your selection, you're gonna wanna save it. And what that does is it locks it in because you're gonna deal with hundreds of properties, dozens of properties, right? So save that property. If you spent all this time working on it, especially dealing with the comps, save the comps because when you leave the property and come back to it, your comps are still there waiting for you, right? The ones that you selected, your filters, they're all there waiting for you. Because sometimes the owners will say, hey, call me back next week. And you don't want to lose all the hard work to do that. If you want to just play it safe after saving it, go to actions and then print your report. So this will allow you to generate a PDF report. And so that PDF report will allow you to get all of our photos and those descriptions of those properties, either using MLS records or the public records, okay? So in just a second, you'll see that. Now, just to kind of wrap it up with the property details, we have the tax information, mortgage and transaction history information, which is where we're getting our mortgage data from, and then the documents and reports. So you can purchase the assessor's map, the document image on any of this property or any other images available. So here's the MLS comps, just shows you what you've done, your filters, the low, the high, the average, and then what sources you use. And then we even show them a picture of each one of those comps and the interior photos of every one of them as well. It's just, again, to paint that picture that, hey, I'm a credible investor. When I'm making an offer, it's serious. And then to your buyers, right? Hey, buyer, I got a property. It's a good deal. They're like, yeah, no way. It's not a good deal. And then you show them these comps and they're like, oh, okay, maybe it is a good deal, right? Because again, it's all about building that credibility. This could be your first deal, but when you have a report like that, no one's going to know it's your first deal, right? You could then tag that property. You might be talking to the owner and they accepted your offer. So there's statuses you can use. You can even put tags. They told you about the broken windows, overgrown lawn. You can add your own notes and you can even add your own tags, right? They told you about the cracked driveway. You can add that. Notes, you can do things like the owner loves football, right? So if next week his football team loses, don't call him next week, right? So there's just notes that you can put to just remind yourself. Again, you're dealing with dozens of property. Even things like, hey, the wife makes the decisions, right? So when you call next week, make sure the wife is on the line. When you hit apply, it just puts that in the center of your screen right here. Oh, I didn't save the property. Hang on a second here. There it is. So puts that notes right here in the center of your screen. That way, if you, again, leave the property, go back to the details, here are the details, and then the comps are there waiting for you. But again, you have the report. Now, if you need the details for whatever reason, if you need to get the details of this property, just hit the print button. And we're going to generate another PDF file for you that you can give to your buyers, your sellers, or the person that you may be doing this operation for, right? Here's the printout of that property, right? So your company manager or whoever it may be, hey, I found a lead. Here's all the details of the property. And here are the comps report I just did for it as well. So this is what we are known for. Now, I started here because what you see here is actually what fuels our search engine. So now let's talk about lead generation. So there's 4 searches that you can perform to build the list. First one is a county, right? So you can search like Fulton County, Georgia. So make sure you have the whole county spelled out, and then you can search that. Now, unlike a property address search, let me put this bar graph away or heat map away. Unlike a specific property search where we give you a specific property, we just tell you the total of records in that market. We say, oh, hey, there's 300,000 records since you searched that market that you can go through one at a time. And every one of them has those details. So if you want to take the time to go through 300,000 records, don't let me stop you. But to make your life easier, we took those records and categorized them for you, right? Now you can search a county, you can search a city like Los Angeles, you can search a zip code. So you can type a zip code like Beverly Hills, for example, and you can do up to 5 zip codes. That's the only search you can do multiples of. So you can do up to 5 zip codes, just separate them with commas and spaces, but you can do up to 5. As you have your zip codes, you can click on them and we're going to give you the results to those 3 or up to 5 zip codes. But this is the only one that you can do multiple searches. No multiple county searches, no multiple city searches, just zip codes. And then finally, remember that heat map? Well, that's powerful because you can use that with our draw search feature. The draw search feature lets you do things, well, besides just shape, like creating your own shape and searching there, you can use it with the heat map. Like show me how Southern California has grown in the last 3 years. And now that I found a good area, I can zoom in on that area and then use the draw search feature to isolate leads in this area, right? So we're not just finding properties in a random area, we're finding properties where there's been substantial growth here, right? So now I can find that pre-foreclosure there, or the properties that have a lien there, or the property that didn't answer their mail recently, right? So That's the draw search feature. And those are the 4 ways to search a market. Okay. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the lead generation. What I was talking about earlier, the buffet of data, right? So when you go to a market, there is a traditional way of searching and there is the Propstream way of searching, what I call it, right? So let's talk about traditional. Now, when we talk about a lead, what is a lead? Well, a lead in the heyday was to get a list. And there was a certain list that people would get. And this is my motivation chart, right? So back in the day, people would get a certain list because it yielded a certain level of motivation. And so here on the left side are your low motivation charts or categories, your mid motivation, or what I call the uh-oh ownerships or the uh-oh owners. And then you have your highly motivated owners, the need help owners, right? So if we were to take our 15 categories and categorize them, here's how they fall on the chart. Your pre-foreclosures and your auctions are the highest motivated ones, because if you don't resolve that, the next step is the bank is going to repossess your property. That's why a lot of investors like pre-foreclosures, right? Because you're going to get big discounts. Sometimes the owners are like, hey, you know what? Just pay my mortgage and just give me a little so I can just put a down payment somewhere. And you can take, the property, even with all that equity on there, right? Because they're on a time frame. So faster discount or big discounts, faster closing because they're on that time frame. But it is a very competitive category, right? So what some people have done is isolate themselves from the competition by what we do call list stacking, right? Instead of calling the 2,000, I'm going to call the 200 that are the most motivated. And that's a term called list stacking. And that's when you take a pre-foreclosure and you add something on top of it, right? And that's what people were doing in the heyday. They would go into Los Angeles or Miami. They would go into our pre-foreclosure category and they would say, okay, those 655, I know a lot of people are calling them, but what I need are the absentee owner ones that are also vacant because I don't want to deal with the tenant at all, right? So that was the concept as technology got in here and said, okay, well, let's go ahead and knock this stuff out right off the bat. Instead of taking this data home and then having to do it manually, we can just knock it out for you, right? Then, because we collect all this data, we can sort by property characteristics, right? I want all the duplexes. I want all the condominiums. I want the commercial properties. I want the residential ones in pre-foreclosure, right? And that will alter the property types if you choose. So if you do commercial, you'll see commercial property types. If you do residential, you'll see residential property types. So as you're creating your own list, or in this case, refining your pre-foreclosure list by adding characteristics to it, you can then start stacking, right? So stacking is when you take 2 categories and piece them together. So I'm taking the pre-foreclosure records and then stacking it with the MLS records. Now, what most people do with that is they'll go in the MLS and say, nothing on market. I don't want anything on market. So the 369 are the ones I want to deal with. But guess what? That's what these guys are looking for, pre-foreclosures that are off market as well. So you can separate yourself a little bit, right? They're going to call everybody, but you can focus your attention on the more motivated ones by calling maybe the pre-foreclosures with the failed listing, right? Instead of calling just 360 properties, we could just call the 63 that actually wanted to sell. They just couldn't do it through an agent, and that's why it failed, right? You see how stacking now increased that motivation to a much higher degree, right? So that's stacking. Now, as you see on this chart, you can continue stacking, right? We're going to give you other filters like pre-foreclosure filters so you can refine or add more to your search, like choose a certain status, certain recording date, auction date. You're going to have ownership info, like the type of owner. I just want pre-foreclosures owned by a person, no corporations, because corporations, forward me and transfer me all the time. I just want to deal with the person, get straight to the point. I can help you, right? You can look for years of ownership, last sell price, maybe how many properties that person owns, right? Because there's a difference between a person owning 1 property and 10 properties. Person owning 1 property may take a little bit longer to make a decision versus the person with 10 properties, because they could just be like, hey, you just go ahead and take it. I got 9 other ones, right? So having the numbers of properties owned is a very important one we just added recently. And then absentee owner. Are they local? Are they in a different state, right? Out of state is big right now, especially with COVID. Like, can this person actually travel to California and attend the auction? And if they can't, maybe they're willing to let it go even faster now, right? So that's a good indication right there for motivation. but you got ownership info, and then you can stack even more. You can take our pre-foreclosure data and you can cross-reference it with our lien data, our bankruptcy data, our divorce data, and that's all right here, right? So I want a pre-foreclosure that also has a lien on it. There are your 5 failed pre-foreclosure with a lien, 3 levels of motivation. They would be at the higher level. So while these guys are calling, 300 results, I'm calling the 5 that really need help. But here's my disclaimer on that. You don't want to overly stack, right? Because you can't put your eggs in the basket for 5 properties. Because what if all 5 of them say no, they're not interested? You're back to square one, right? So as much as our system allows you to stack, and if you want to, you can, you probably don't want to do that at the end of the day, right? I mean, stacking too much can sometimes, again, narrow your results to the point where you have only 4 or 3 results. Now, you might get a deal great, but if you don't, then we're back to square one. So try to keep it general, but just do note that we have that level of stacking if you want to do that, okay? So not only can you stack, but just like you can say no on-market properties, no pre-foreclosures, you can also say no liens, no bankruptcies, no divorces. So we can take that away from your list. So if you've had a horrible situation dealing with a divorce in the past before, you can stay away from it now, okay? And then the last 2 categories are value and equity info, estimated value, rent value, the income or the equity amount, either by a dollar or percentage amount, and then the mortgage information. How many mortgages are you looking for? 1, 2, 3, what can you do? What can you resolve? Are you looking for a property that was once bought in cash, once free and cleared? Like your choice there, okay? So this is the traditional method, is taking a list, right, pre-foreclosure, and then you can stop there, or you can do what I just did, stack to it. And then after you stack it, here are your 22 results out of the 655. From there, you can click on your results and go through them, right? We got the pre-foreclosure you're looking for. We got the failed listing that you're looking for, right? We can now run comps on them. But obviously, in order to, you don't run comps before you market. So you're going to want to check these properties off, add it to a list, either one that you've already saved or a new list. And then you're going to go from there, right? So save it to a list, and then you're going to go into your My Properties where we store them. And then you can export it from here and go from there, okay? So that's how the list generation build works. Now, you can also focus on the I heavily emphasize this because a lot of investors that come into this industry go straight into pre-foreclosures, which again, it's a very competitive market. So how do you edge out your competition? You just have to understand that nobody wakes up in pre-foreclosure overnight. There's usually an indication of something happening before that. So here, let me log out and log back in, lagging just a little bit. But what I'm going to show you right now is called just list suppression. If I know that in this market, everybody's calling pre-foreclosures, well, I know that one of these categories can turn into pre-foreclosure, like a tax lien. Tax liens are very aggressive. A tax lien can turn into a pre-foreclosure. So let's beat out my competition. Let's go to Los Angeles and let's look for a lien, right? But we're going to stay away from these guys, right? The pre-foreclosures. How do we do that? Pre-foreclosure area, remove pre-foreclosures from my lien lists. Simple as that. Now we're going to go ahead and implement the same things we do normally, which is we want also off-market properties. We want them to be single family. We want them to be owned by a person, maybe for like 5 years or so. That way we know there's some equity in there. Actually, let's make sure there's equity in there. Let's make sure there's 50% or more in equity there. But here's a kicker, right? So we have someone that's here. They're not in pre-foreclosure. So that motivation is very low. But can I still make that motivation even higher? Yeah, absolutely. Because you could stack 2 categories, right? We're still not in pre-foreclosure, but a lien with maybe a bankruptcy together, right? 154 properties, they're here because they're not in pre-foreclosure yet, but they have 2 categories, a lien and a bankruptcy. So what I'm thinking is that these 154 people have a higher probability compared to the 13,000 of them, right? These are 13,000 liens, but these 154, because of the bankruptcy and because of the lien, they're probably most likely heading in this direction, right? Now, here's the thing you have to understand. They're not there yet. So when you call them or when you send that first text message to them, they may not say yes right away. They may cuss you out. That's why you have to be patient. This is what I educate people on, is that there's multiple follow-ups that are involved. You have to build that relationship, build that rapport with them, right? Because the idea is, hey, they're in a lien in a bankruptcy now. If they cuss me out, or if they say no and I give up now, okay. Because one day they're going to turn into pre-foreclosure and then someone else is going to call them and I just lost out on the deal. If I'm patient, maybe call back 30 days later and see how things are going, maybe build a little bit more relationship with them. They still might say no. 30 days later, we do a third follow-up, right? They know me by name now, right? They know my offer amount, right? They still say no. Fourth follow-up, that's when the creditor letters are starting to come through. And that's when the homeowner's like, okay, you know what? I think maybe we do need to take your offer. And then you're able to get that purchase agreement signed here on that fourth follow-up well before your competition even sees it. Now, what if they end up ignoring you, right? You followed up for like 12 months or 6 months and they say, yeah, you know what? Nah. Well, here's what's going to happen. When they go into pre-foreclosure, all of a sudden their phone numbers are going to triple. Their emails or post orders are going to quadruple, right? All of a sudden they're going to be bombarded with people saying, I can help you. I can help you. I have an offer for you. Now, when that happens, who do you think they're going to trust? These people that are just calling them out of nowhere, or you, because you've been working with them for the last 6 months, right? So build that relationship and understand that some categories do take a lot longer to work with. Okay, so understand that concept. Now, finally, I'm going to leave you guys off with the data buffet mentality, the philosophy I have. A lot of people call in and say, Burton, what are the best leads that people are pulling? And I used to try to find the answer back in the day and I couldn't. Like I literally would just, it's just a never ending kind of journey. So here's the answer I discovered, is that no two investors are the same, right? Strategies are different. So based on your strategy will dictate what type of leads you need. So let's give you an example, right? If I'm a wholesaler, if you're a wholesaler, then there's some key core things that you need, right? The first thing you need is off-market property. So you're going to go to LA and you're going to look for off-market properties. Another thing you have to have if you're going to wholesale is equity, right? So let's just get out of the way. Off-market and 60% in equity. Great. Now here's where things kind of taken a turn, right? Because real estate investing has been around for such a long time, a lot of people are teaching, go get a list, go get motivated sellers. And for the longest time, the only way you can get that was from a source like the county or an agent or the postal service. So what ended up happening is that people would look for off-market properties with equity, but then be forced to choose a list. So they would say, oh, okay, I got to find off-market pre-foreclosures with equity, or off-market equity with liens, or off-market equity that are vacant, right? That's what people are doing to this very day, right? We allow you to do that, but we also allow you to now create your own. And so here's my mentality I'm going to leave you guys off with. A lead is not a list, even though that's what you're building. A lead is really a situation, a problem. You're looking for a homeowner who's in a situation that has a high probability that they're going to want to sell you their house at a discounted price. That's simple as that, right? You're building problems. So to prove my point, I'm not going to choose a list, and I'm just going to start throwing out problems that I can think of that I've experienced investors come across, right? No on market, has 60% in equity, has 3 mortgages. That's a problem. Who wants 3 mortgages? There are 356 properties in LA County with 3 mortgages on their property today, right? Let's think of another problem. How about you have 1 mortgage on your property, but it's currently vacated right now. So you have a mortgage and it's not cash flowing right now. That's a problem, right? Hey, let's make it even worse. You live in a different state. So traveling to even find a renter is worse. There are 6 properties where the owner lives in a different state. They're paying a mortgage on it every day here in California, but nobody's renting out that property. Like, what are you doing, right? Let me just take over that portfolio for you, right? Let me just cash you out and we'll rehab it and we'll rent it back out, right? So that's the concept of building problems. Now, sky's the limit. Once you understand problems, you can do things like, okay, in that case, I want and you can even do it with the list, right? I want senior owners, right? Properties are vacant, but they own 10 properties. So I want a senior owner who has 10 properties or more, and one of their properties is vacant right now. And there are 39 properties in LA County that are vacant, owned by a senior. They have 10 other properties. And when I click on the property, it's all here, right? Link properties. This company has 33 properties, right? So this is what I encourage you guys to understand is that build problems. Sometimes these problems aren't a list. Sometimes they could just be random things that you never could have thought or imagined a homeowner would want to sell the property for. Like I have people that sell properties because they're in an HOA, right? So look for properties in an HOA. Maybe properties that are in an HOA and the property was like built in 1950, in 1970. Because the HOA is now getting on their case like, no, you got to make it look nice. You got to upkeep your property, right? Your 50, 60-year-old property, you got to keep upkeeping it, right? The HOA sometimes get on people's cases. And what happens if you don't take care of your HOA? You'll get a lien. They'll put a lien on your property because you didn't upkeep your grass, right? That's what I'm going to leave you guys off with. Build these problems. And as you're building your problems, you can then again save them by adding it to an existing list. From there, you can export it. You can skip trace it, get a cell phone, get a landline or an email, and then you can market to it. Now, remember, you don't have to do all of that. If you just want to build the list and export it, you can export it from My Properties. If you want to build the list and then skip trace it to get a phone number, go for it. And then once you get that phone number, we're going to send it to your contacts page. But once you get that phone number, right, you can then check it off and export it, and then we can upload it to Smarter Contact. And if you want to send postcards because you don't have a service for that, we got you covered. In our campaign page, you can create an auction campaign. You can create a buyer's campaign. So you just start a new campaign, name it, and choose your list. But your auction campaign, your buyer's campaign, it gets a free website, right? Hey, I buy houses. We close in 30 days, right? Fill out this contract right here, or this application here. So you get a free website for each one of your campaigns, and then you can send postcards, voicemails, or emails. And then again, just to wrap things up, we have also the mobile app. We have team member accounts. We have our weekly webinars that we do. So come join us every week if you want to learn more about Propstream. We have help videos, a Propstream user community page on Facebook. Like, we're here to help as much as possible. But that's pretty much Propstream in a nutshell. I'm going to go ahead and give that back to you, Daniel.
Man, awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Burton. That was really great. And I can definitely tell you, for all those who are still on, well, actually, yeah, if you're still on, I know a couple of you, there was some glitches on your end. Everything was good on our end, so don't worry. I will be posting the replay on the YouTube channel and also in our Facebook group, and we'll also be doing an email blast with the replay as well. But I can tell you from experience, I know when I first got into the industry, I actually started as a realtor. And once I kind of learned the power of the data, it really changes your perspective. Because in the beginning, when you're showing us, how to look at a market, pulling up comps, really anyone as a real estate professional can be using this data. It doesn't matter if you're a realtor, a loan officer, especially now with everybody wanting to refinance, wholesaler, flipper, or if you're just looking for a property, a good rental stream of income. This is a great way to be able to find those types of properties that aren't really for sale in the MLS. I've had a lot of investors like, hey, I'm looking for a rental property in this area. They go on the MLS or Zillow, nothing's for sale, but yet they stop right there. And it's like, well, no, let's look at the data. Somebody's got to be motivated somewhere, and continue with that search. And then I know for me, working with investors, doing marketing for investors, there's still so many investors out there who don't understand the power behind list stacking and getting deep. A lot of people, there's a lot of data sources where they just pay somebody and they just get X amount of records who are absentees in a market. Yeah, even though they never looked at, well, what's the square footage, or what's the price point? Are they out of state, in state, in a different market? Because I know a lot of investors, here, especially here in California, maybe I don't want to have a list of people who have homes that are more than $1 million. Because I know in Southern California, I know it's different in a lot of different states, but I know in Southern California, that suite type of home that's for a rehab Well, it's usually between 1,000 to 1,800 square feet. And I know my ARV that if I want to sell it quickly should be between 550 to maybe like 850, because that's the sweet spot. So if I can get my list and find properties that match that criteria, well, I know that's going to be a good flip that I will be able to sell very quickly on the market once it's done. So I know there's a lot of stuff for everybody to take in, but those are things that when you next time you pull your list, everybody definitely play with the filtering, play with, again, also when was the home built? I don't really want a home that's built probably after 2000 because it probably still looks nice. So, but awesome. We'll leave it for Q&A. I'm so excited that a lot of you kind of still staying on. So if you have any questions for Burton right now, go ahead and hit in the chat. Or if you just want to send them some love too. Give a thumbs up, tell them or share what you learned today as well. We'd love to hear from you. Or I'll take it everybody learned and is good to go. Who's got questions either? Like, that's fine. That's a good presentation if you have no questions at the end because you learned everything. So, good stuff.
Oh, you guys are very welcome. Steve, thank you. Andrew, thank you. Yeah, again, if you guys can walk away with anything, just remember to build problems, because your competition isn't going to stop. As you know, more and more investors are jumping into the market. You have to understand the concept of building problems. And I think it's funny too, because sometimes I'll go out to events and I'll talk to an investor. I'm networking out at an event show. I'm out on the floor and an investor comes up and is like, hey, we use Propstream. We found a great lead, or we found a lead. Maybe it's a different platform or something. They'll say, yeah, we found this lead and we closed this deal, because they're always sharing their unique stories, right? Sometimes they'll say things like, oh yeah, we found the senior owner had like 2 mortgages on the property, and then we discovered he had 5 other properties, right? Well, I will say, well, how did you get that list? And they're like, oh, we just pulled it from a vacant list or a high equity list, right? And that's the thing, like you actually went through an entire high equity list when with our system, you could have just isolated that. I want a senior owner, lots of equity, has 10 or more properties. Why? Because this is the list I believe are ready to liquidate their portfolio, right? And that, to me, I want you guys to understand that back in the day, and again, people are still doing it, which is a benefit if you understand technology. But back in the day, and till to this very day, people still think you need to get a list, right? And that's why they get mad when they're like, you don't have today's pre-foreclosure list, right? And it's like, we don't have it today. We'll get it in the next day or two, but are you going to stop? Like, you still have to think outside of the box. And I'm just saying, you're going to compete with people that still think that way, and that gives you a benefit. So if you can absorb the concept, whether it's our platform or the next platform, that I need to not only build from a list that they're providing, but if I can build my own categories, that's what's going to take you to that next level. So I really appreciate you guys and the feedback I'm getting from you guys.
Yeah, and for those of you, if you're new to Propstream or you just don't have a data source and you're new, we do have a free trial. The link is in the comments. And we also wanted to give you a little bonus. If you do end up signing up for Propstream through the link that I posted, send the confirmation over to our support team, and Adam is generous enough to hook you up with $25 of SMS credits for those who sign up with Propstream through us, because we want to, our goal is to keep providing value for you guys. We want you to grow. We want to introduce you to other tools that work hand in hand with Smarter Contact, because we're a text message, soon to be ringless voicemail. So obviously when it comes to any marketing, the first step is having good data and understanding your marketing before you go. Because if you don't have that really nailed down, you can text blast, but if you're texting or sending ringless voicemails to really homeowners that aren't motivated, well, you're not going to generate hot leads that are ready to close deals within the next few weeks or so. So, yep, definitely check out the free trial if you guys want to get with it. And then also, I want to challenge some of you who've been on this call. Like I said, I will be posting this replay in the Facebook group. So I would love for you guys to go to the Facebook group and then comment what is going to be your next list you're going to be creating. All right. So I want you to share with me your list filters. You don't have to tell me the market. You don't have to tell me the city or market so other people don't know where you're pulling. But I would love to see what filters are you going to be using and what niche lists are you going to be creating next after this. So post it on the comment when I have the replay in the group. And maybe I'll have to reel Burton over to our group to maybe, answer some questions you guys have, or even share with some of the comments when you guys will post.
I'll definitely be back. Again, this system is so comprehensive. We didn't even talk about the mobile app, the list automated. Michael, I know you had a question about that. I don't want to draw too much time from you guys, but Michael, we do have some videos in the help section about List Automator. But for me, the best thing about List Automator, if I could just give you like a 30-second spiel on it, is automating a list. The reason for that is it took us 2 years to develop that portion. Here's the thing with List Automator is it can take a list that you've saved with certain filters that you want on that list and remove any properties that no longer meet that criteria in your list. So you could save 1,000 properties today, and next week, 20 of them could no longer meet your equity criteria, or the fact that they're no longer on market, or that they paid off their pre-foreclosure, right? Now, in the past, there was no way of knowing that information. So what investors were doing back in the heyday was they would just keep sending 1,000 postcards for 6 months. And then after 6 months, they would dump that list and then rebuy it again, right? Now there would be new properties in that new list, and there'd be some of the old ones in that list. And then they would repeat that behavior again, right? List Automator gets rid of that. List Automator says, okay, I have 1,000 vacant properties that are off market with equity. Let's send them a postcard. Next week, when I log in and click on that list, it says, Burton, we got to remove 200 of them. Why? Because 200 of them are no longer vacant. And that saves me 200 postcards. If postcards are 50 cents a piece, that's $100 I just saved the following month in unnecessary postcards. That's why List Automator is to me, one of the most powerful features that we have. I can go for days on it, but just check out the videos. And that to me is probably the best part about it. It really pays for itself and then gives you more if you're utilizing it correctly. But again, it gives you the ability to automate multiple marketing lists and let us take care of the properties that meet or no longer meet your criteria going forward. It's a good question.
Maybe we'll have to have you come back and just maybe share about the app, maybe do like another quick tech tip on I don't know, on another Thursday, because the app is great too. Because I know, at least for me, what's interesting is, I don't know if you guys remember, but we were all stuck inside our homes for a certain period of time. And of course, I know, a lot of people, they start, what do you do? Well, you get a house, and if you can't go anywhere, you just start walking around in your neighborhood. And I only know, for at least me, I've walked to different parts of my neighborhood that I've never really walked to. And I start noticing like, that house is kind of worn down. Like that could be, I should probably reach out to them. And instead of having to just write down the address on my notes, being able to pull up the app and just one click, boom, you got all that information right there. That is definitely the next game changer for, I believe, this coming year when it comes to door knocking.
Oh, I'm there. I'm definitely, you let me know when. I'll be back to teach you guys about the mobile app and how the data transitions over to the mobile app, and how you can read the data, run comps, and then do all the driving for dollar stuff like marketing and so forth. So yeah, whenever you guys are ready, just let me know, Daniel. I'll definitely get with you after this. But I want to thank you guys so much for your time, and it looks like I've addressed all the questions. So if you guys do have more, let me know.
I think we're good. Yeah. Thank you so much, Burton. Man, appreciate it. And again, guys, if somehow you do come up with questions after this, head to the Facebook group, post them in the comments section under the replay, and we will definitely get to you. So yeah, thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.